you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Jody, could you call the roll, please?
Dennis.
Here.
Harold.
Here.
Hollenbaugh.
Here.
Odoricio.
Here.
Robinette.
Here.
Urbando.
Here.
Okay. The minutes from our October 16th meeting have been distributed for your perusal. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Correspondence. Jody, do we have any correspondence?
Yes, one item tonight received from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control was an application for a C1, C2 liquor permit for DPCB Inc., DBA Cora's Wine and Beverage, 106 through 110 Napoleon Road. Records were requested.
Okay, is that it then?
Yes, it is.
All right, that brings us to lobby visitations. When your name is called by the clerk, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and take it away.
Bob Clark Phelps.
Good evening. My name is Bob Clark Phelps. I'm a neighbor from the north, 640 Ashbury Drive, Perrysburg, in Ohio. As a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, I support the resolution to be introduced this evening on a market-based approach to mitigate the damaging effects of carbon dioxide emissions on our environment. The resolution lays out clearly both the need for carbon fee and dividend and the many benefits that this policy will bring. First, let me thank all of you on council and the mayor for taking time to meet with us to discuss the benefits of the carbon fee and dividend policy over the last 5 years. Thanks also to the prominent members of the community, several of you here on council included, who have personally endorsed this policy. We also appreciate the 80 current and former members of the BG community who have expressed their support for a council resolution endorsing carbon fee and dividend. There could be concerns about the council weighing in on a federal issue. I understand the council's primary focus is on city governance. Please consider that this issue is not just one among many. What's at stake is the stability of major ecosystems and the health and safety of communities across the world, including Bowling Green. The challenge of protecting our environment is owned by every one of us. All of us contribute to emissions, and all of us are already feeling the effects of extreme events made worse by these emissions. The smoke we breathed in from wildfires in Canada this summer came as a shock. We cannot accept the risk that such events become routine or become even more severe. Congress has made important progress on policies to reduce emissions, but there is still no bipartisan consensus and no economy-wide policy framework to head off extremely severe impacts. Notably, no U.S. laws provide any incentive for foreign countries to reduce their emissions. U.S. citizens are in favor of a carbon fee. 68% of registered voters support a revenue-neutral carbon fee in which the funds are used to reduce income or other taxes. Why has this policy, or something similar to it, not yet become law? Members of Congress need to hear from us that our environment is a priority, and they need to see consensus building around specific bipartisan solutions. Note that this resolution calls specifically for a bipartisan policy that is revenue neutral and focuses on market-based solutions rather than government regulation. You are the voice of the residents of Bowling Green. You have the power to shape and build bipartisan consensus at this critical time. Please safeguard the quality of life in Bowling Green for current and future generations by passing this resolution. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much.
Vasiliki Leontis.
Vasiliki Leontis, 119 North Summit at Bowling Green. I'm here to talk a little bit about a very interesting letter that was published on Sentinel on the November 4th, Saturday. And it is from a citizen who is concerned about Councilman Dennis's conflict of interest regarding rental regulations. The person writing this letter states that landlords hold significant power and influence due to their financial interest in the rental market. And this is of particular concern. So, because Councilman Dennis is also owner of a certain rental property, and I don't know how big of a property he owns. Is it like thousands or hundreds of rental units? I'm not sure, because when we talk about rental properties, we're talking about large properties here. So he's in a conflict of interest because the decisions that he might make in legislating regarding any kind of regulation of rental properties will be influenced by his own interest, because he is an owner. Now, first of all, 2 points here. I couldn't agree more with the person writing this letter. I am against the immorality of any situation that harbors a conflict of interest. I'll be the first one to wave the conflict of interest flag. It's horrible. All right. Second, let's look at the conflict of interest that he has. He has a very, very strange, interesting, unique conflict of interest, except that it is in reverse. What do I mean by that? Have you checked the kinds of policies, the kind of legislation that he has been supporting, advocating for, fighting for? He's fighting for regulating the rental market. In other words, he wants his own property or properties, I don't know how many he has, to be regulated. Now, I think that that's a huge conflict of interest, because he's going against his own interest. I've never seen such a conflict before. That's very interesting. That's reverse. So it is good, I think, for anybody to look at the kinds of policies that, our legislators here push for, and then decide whether they truly have a conflict of interest in the kinds of legislation that they are doing. I think otherwise we, as letter writers, and I sometimes write letters too, we risk to write letters that are very contradictory at best. At worst, I won't say, but thank you.
Thank you very much.
Charlotte Reith.
Good evening. My name is Charlotte Wright. I live at 428 South Main, number 3, here in Bowling Green. I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, and I've been a resident of Bowling Green for over 12 years now. I would like to go ahead and echo Bob Clark Phelps's thanks to City Council and the Mayor, as well as all of the community supporters, Carbon Fee and Dividend, for the work and time that they've put in helping get this resolution to the table. In addition to Bob's comments about the scope and commonality of the effects of carbon pollution on our environment, I'd also like to take a moment to comment on the fiscal effects of climate change and their relevance to both this resolution and to the city of Bowling Green. 1 year ago, almost exactly, the Ohio Environmental Council published a report titled "The Bill is Coming Due," which I've taken the liberty of emailing to you as well as the mayor. This report examines the costs that local governments will be facing as a result of climate change caused by carbon pollution. This report estimates that by the middle of the century, just a short 26 years away, Ohio municipalities are going to have to increase spending by, at minimum, 82% to adapt to and mitigate the effects of increasing extreme weather on local infrastructure. This includes things like increased cooling costs for municipal buildings like the one we're meeting in now, stormwater management, which I know is particularly relevant to Bowling Green, road repair, drinking water treatment, and other costs, including ones that they were unable to measure for the report due to the diffuse nature of those costs. These costs are going to have a direct impact on the financial lives of Bowling Green residents, and local governments are going to have to explore every option to pay for those costs, including advocating to higher levels of government on behalf of their citizens for effective national legislation, both to safeguard municipal interests and to protect our citizens from increased municipal costs due to extreme weather. Because the effects of carbon pollution are so universal, any action that is taken or not taken now at any level to mitigate that pollution is going to have a direct impact on the future lives of BG citizens and the city's finances. I believe that this resolution is an important opportunity for City Council to advocate for the residents of Bowling Green, both to support a national, bipartisan, revenue-neutral policy that actively protects our citizens' finances, both through the carbon dividend and indirectly through effectively reducing carbon pollution that is amplifying the harmful and costly effects of extreme weather on city infrastructure and citizen finances. Congress needs to hear that these costs are a concern at the local level to local governments, and that there is support for fair and effective bipartisan solutions. As a resident of Bowling Green, I am asking City Council to please protect Bowling Green residents by passing this resolution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Craig Zerbal.
Good evening. My name is Craig Zerbal, 1304 North Orleans, Bowling Green. Thanks to Council for considering the resolution that's coming up on carbon fee and dividend. I'd like to offer a little bit different perspective from the other two. I'm also very concerned about carbon. I think we really do need to take action, significant action, to reduce the amount of carbon that we're putting in the atmosphere. Thinking about that a few years ago, my wife and I bought electric cars, partly to stop burning so much gasoline, but partly also because they're cheaper overall and they're pleasant to drive. But we were really shocked and irritated a few years later when we found that the state of Ohio was imposing a new fee on people on electric cars. It's $200 per year per car. And we had been hoping to save money, and that really hurts. It makes it harder to save money with the switch. But as I thought about it, I realized my car damages the road just like any other car. And if I'm not buying gasoline, I'm not paying the taxes that repair the roads. You know what? I'm causing damage, but I'm not paying for that damage if I'm driving an electric car with no fee. So it strikes me the fee on the electric cars is a fair thing. It's a new thing for a new situation. People recognize, okay? Carbon fee and dividend, I think, is very much the same sort of thing. We realize now that every time we burn gasoline, natural gas, coal, or oil, we're contributing carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and it is damaging things. It is heating the atmosphere, it's raising sea levels, we have wildfires, the list, right, goes on. It's hurting every living thing on the planet. We're damaging things
And we're also already paying the fee, right? But it's the wrong people paying the fee, right? It's people who live near the coast, who don't have a whole lot of money, whose place is getting flooded. It's farms that are getting flooded. It's wildfires burning people's houses and polluting the air. It's the wrong people paying the fee. The great thing about the carbon dividend, fee and dividend proposal is it has a new fee for a new time for the people who are burning fossil fuels and contributing the CO2 in proportion to how much they do, right? So bigger polluters would pay more. And then the genius of the thing is that instead of it being a big revenue windfall for the government, it comes back around and sent out as a dividend to individuals so they can get by as prices change and they get the price signals to change what they're spending money on, burn less carbon, and switch to things that are more renewable. So those are the reasons that I support the proposal. I look forward to the discussion of that later. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jean Martin.
Jean Martin, 218 Crim Street. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening, but I will tell you, I am really nervous. Let me introduce myself. This will make the topic I would like to address a little more personal. My family has lived at 218 Crim Street for 80 years. My children are the third generation to live in this grand old home. We have stayed here in Bowling Green because of its vibrant homes and the people we have met in this community. We have always found the city an excellent place to raise children. My front porch has been a gathering place for generations of my family, friends, and neighbors. After a hard day of work, we rest on the porch and recall the day. Our neighbors come and go as they walk the street, stopping by for a chat. We take pleasure in knowing we are part of this community and want to show our appreciation by caring for our home and yard for people to enjoy. Our neighborhood has come and gone over the years with residents and rentals alike, yet here on Crim Street, most of the houses put in an awful lot of effort to look nice. We often have neighbors stop by for a chat as we're working on our yards. On October 24th, the Utilities Department, replacing utility poles, moved a utility pole that had been in our neighbor's yard for 80 years. From the neighbor's boulevard to ours, much to our chagrin. This move causes a few issues that I would like to address here. It is 20 feet from my front porch and directly in front of my front door. It has become the focal point of my home, whether you are looking at the house from the street or when you are looking from the street to the front door. It has left us bereft. We have tried so hard to keep things looking nice. But the city didn't contact us and let us know the pole was being replaced, more or less that the pole would be moved to our boulevard in front of our home. If they had taken the time to ask and given me time to explain, I would have asked them if the better solution might not have been to leave the pole where it stands. My thoughts would have been these. First, the pole has been there for 80 years with no complaints. Second, the easements for 3 houses that connect to the pole have been given to the house at 214 Crim Street. Third, because the easements are on the other property, midline drops have to be placed from the electric line in front of 214 Crim to each of 4 houses. Due to the easements at 214 Crim and the odd placement of the new pole in the front of my front door, so near to my home, all of the utility drops, internet, phone, cable, and electric, all have to remain at the former pole's location. This causes not only an eyesore with midline drops, but is also an unstable connection for these utility lines and has the potential for causing power outages and downed power lines in the event of a storm. After discussing this with my family, my friends, and my neighbors, we all agree that this pole is poorly placed and will cause more harm for the neighborhood than good. We believe the pole should be moved back to 214, where all of the connections for the utility currently are in place. We ask the city to move the pole back to its former location, where it has stood for 80 years without issue. Thanks for hearing my concerns in this matter, and I appreciate the opportunity to address council. I look forward to hearing back from you regarding the poll. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much.
That's everyone.
Okay. All right, that brings us to the introduction of new
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
from the Finance Committee, I have 4 ordinances. First, an ordinance providing supplemental appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023. An ordinance amending appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023. An ordinance amending and adopting Section 33.0 codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio relative to pay scales for seasonal employees. And an ordinance amending and adopting sections of Chapter 30 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green regarding members' compensation terms.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
on behalf of the Sustainability Committee, I have a resolution in support of a market-based component to enhance citizen quality of life through improved air quality.
Okay. And then from Public Utilities, I have, let's see, 4 ordinances. First, an ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to enter into contracts for the Carter Park Baseball Field Lighting Project and declaring an emergency. Next, an ordinance authorizing an easement for First Energy transmission line. Next, an ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to enter into contracts for services associated with Geographic Information System Utility Pole Audit. That one's timely. And ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to execute conduit lease agreement with Amplex Electric Incorporated. All right, that brings us to official reports. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Council. I really don't have any report this evening other than to offer what has become my typical election eve comment about the importance of tomorrow's events. I've said frequently that it is my belief that voting is and continues to be one of our most significant and important civic responsibilities. So I simply want to point out the fact that there are many important measures on the ballot, and if you have not already, I want to encourage everyone in attendance, everyone watching, all of our citizens to please exercise this very important civic responsibility and vote tomorrow. That's all I have, subject to any questions that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for the mayor this evening? Okay. Hearing none, Municipal Administrator, Ms. Treader.
I have no report this evening.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Treader this evening? Okay. City Attorney, Mr. Brown.
Good evening. I was asked to give an update on the landlord registration, the self-inspection forms, and as previously discussed, we've been trying to somewhat distill the forms into something that's both respectful of the program as a whole and comprehensive and user-friendly. And that's what we're doing right now. We have received a lot of feedback, some great feedback from a lot of people who've looked over the templates that we've worked up. We've worked up shorter ones that are still comprehensive and maintain the integrity of the program. And we're in the process of distilling that feedback with what we currently have. And as of this conversation right now, I'd expect that we would have that finalized and uploaded in a few weeks, at the latest by the end of the month. And that's all the report I have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Brown?
Yes, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I hadn't intended to bring it up, but it has been brought up. I had reached out to you regarding the allegation of a conflict of interest for council members voting on legislation who might own rental properties. Would you mind summarizing that opinion for us?
Sure. Earlier today, I responded to you with a letter. Basically, the summary of that is I don't feel that there's a conflict at all. You know, when you're looking at conflicts of interest, you want to look at particularities and you want to see the direct connection between how someone could potentially benefit from something that they're voting on. And it has to be specific. There's no way that we can weed out every potential thing that a council person would vote on that would cross over with their everyday life. It simply doesn't work that way. And in fact, that might be the reason people vote for them, is because they have an interest in something that might be coming before them at some point. So I don't feel that the issue that you're voting on or have voted on have been close enough to rise to the level of a conflict of interest or close at all.
And if a conflict ever were to arise, that would be your job to notify any of us of that in advance of the vote, presumably?
Sure.
Nothing from me.
Any other questions? Okay. Public Infrastructure Director, Mr. O'Connell.
Good evening. Just letting you know that on Monday, the 13th at 5 o'clock, we'll have a review of the utilities budget that's being proposed to the Board of Public Utilities and to City Council. We don't typically have other actions that occur that night, so we just talk about the budget and show you what we have. And then we typically ask the board to approve the utilities budgets on the next meeting on the 27th. So that's all I have for you, unless you have questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. O'Connell this evening? Okay.
Thanks.
That brings us to council committee reports.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
excuse me, we had a public hearing tonight on ordinance 9128. There were no public comments received. There were no questions from any member of the committee.
Okay. Anyone have anything else? I would like to put out a few reminders there. Prior to our meeting on the 20th of this month, there are two public hearings scheduled. There is one scheduled at 6:30 for ordinance 9137, and there is one scheduled at 6:45 for ordinance 9138. And I believe, Greg, at the last meeting, you scheduled a finance committee meeting for December 4th at 6 p.m.?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that's all I have as far as meetings go. Which brings us to the reading of legislation. Jody?
Legislation for first reading. Resolution 3859 for first reading. Resolution in support of a market-based component to enhance citizen quality of life through improved air quality.
Mr. President.
Mr. Robinette.
I know that we typically wait until the second or third reading to comment on pending legislation, but I feel compelled to do so now to counter the perception there's unanimity on this resolution, because there is not. The resolution does seem a veiled attempt to promote H.R. 5744, which is essentially a reintroduction of H.R. 2307, also known as the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act of 2023. The language that concerned me in H.R. 2307 remains in H.R. 5744, and my comments will therefore be directed to that common language. Also, the language of the resolution is unnecessarily verbose and further presumes that members of this council have had a chance to study the issue in detail, to read and understand the myriad references cited, and that this council is unified in its opinion on the matter. That is absurd, and that is not true. I will provide some background. I and other members of this council were approached in the spring of 2022 by members of the Citizens Climate Lobby. I met with them. I listened to their support of H.R. 2307, and then I conducted my own research. I have read H.R. 2307 and 5744 multiple times, and although I fully support the goal of working to eliminate harmful pollution so as to have a healthier planet, I have many questions about the bill. I disagree with the premise that the bill will drive market-driven innovation of clean energy technologies. Indeed, the bill only seeks to encourage such innovation, not ensure it. What the bill does is to artificially inflate the cost of certain commodities and industries through taxes. I disagree with the premise that taxing one sector of the economy out of business and redistributing a portion of the tax receipts to consumers will create jobs in untaxed business and economic sectors. Welfare does not create jobs. I have questions about how we come out ahead as a country if we make this bill law make this bill law and start down the road of eliminating large and key segments of our economy. Specifically, this bill seeks to eliminate carbon-intensive products and the companies that produce them. And they are defined as iron, steel, steel mill products, including pipe and tube, aluminum, cement, glass, including flat, container, and specialty glass and fiberglass, pulp, paper, chemicals, or industrial ceramics, and any economic sector or product from that sector defined by the Secretary of Energy and the Administrator of the EPA. The bill also seeks to eliminate what the bill calls covered entities, which are defined as crude oil refineries and any importer of petroleum or petroleum product into the U.S., coal mining, any entity or entering natural gas into the natural gas transmission system, and anyone transporting, selling, or otherwise using a covered fuel. This seems to cover all refined petroleum products in a transport truck, in the ground at a gas station, and in every combustion engine car in the U.S. I have questions about the impact of the cessation of the dividend. The bill anticipates ending the dividends in the future, but what will happen when much higher alternative energy costs continue, but the dividends do not? I've read a number of articles that offer support for this bill, even while recognizing that the tax on carbon emissions will rise to nearly $100 a ton by 2030. I have questions about how the communities, large and small, will recover. The communities who will lose jobs as the oil, coal, and natural gas production is taxed out of business, and the iron, steel, aluminum, cement, glass, pulp, paper, chemicals, or industrial ceramics businesses are shuttered. I have a lot of questions about the bill and its potential and extremely negative impact on the national economy and on national security. I therefore cannot endorse its passage. More relevant to today, I cannot support Resolution 3859 now or in the future. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Mr. Harold.
I'm shocked that anyone would accuse me of being verbose. That aside, and I could go into great detail as to why I am not verbose. Most of what Councilmember Robinette has stated is with respect to the current U.S. House bill. This resolution does not reference that, and its intent, in my writing it, my intent was not to reference any particular House bill. I do recall when there was some discussion, behind-the-scenes discussion with people about that House bill. I was not in favor of endorsing it for a number of reasons. But what I tried to craft here is something that allows us to communicate with the state and national level that there should be some sort of a solution, and the solution, as part of this solution, all of the above kind of solution, would be carbon fee and dividend, and specifically Section 2, part of it, that is part of a comprehensive solution. That's important. It's not a cure-all. City Council hereby expresses their support for a well-balanced, practical, and pragmatic, bipartisan federal carbon fee and dividend policy as a means to reduce the environmental and human costs of the emissions generated by burning fossil fuels. The said policy may result in establishment of a fee on said emissions and a carbon dividend, et cetera. And so, again, I don't argue with Councilmember Robinette's critique of the current House bill. I'm just saying that what I tried to craft here does not endorse that bill either. It asks for something more general. And hopefully, a meeting of the smart people without political agendas at the federal level to actually try and solve this problem with a comprehensive solution that has as a component carbon fee and dividend. So that's just a few comments in response to Greg. I don't fault him for opposing the current House bill. I'm just saying that this resolution does not encourage it either.
All right. Any other comments on Resolution 3859 in its tumultuous first reading? Okay. Jody, please continue.
Ordinance number 9144 for first reading. Ordinance providing supplemental appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31, 2023.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to give ordinance 9144, suspend the rules and give our ordinance 9144 its second and third readings.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Jody?
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odoricio,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Urbando,
Yes.
Dennis.
Yes.
Okay, the rules are suspended for ordinance 9144.
Ordinance number 9144 for second and third readings. Ordinance providing supplemental appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31, 2023.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to adopt ordinance 9144.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Jody?
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odoricio,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Urbando,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 9144 is adopted.
Ordinance number 9145 for first reading. Ordinance amending appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31, 2023.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to suspend the rules and give ordinance 9145 its second and third reading.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Jody?
Ordinance number 9145 for second and third readings. Ordinance amending appropriations for the current
Oh, yeah,
expense.
we have to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. So I need you to call roll.
Odoricio,
Yes.
way ahead of it, yeah. Robinette,
Yes.
Urbando,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh.
Yes.
Sorry
Okay, the
about
rules are suspended for ordinance 9145.
Ordinance number 9145 for second and third readings. Ordinance amending appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2023 and ending December 31, 2023.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to adopt ordinance 9145.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right. Roll call.
Thank you. Robinette,
Yes.
Urbando,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odoricio.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 9145 is adopted.
Ordinance number 9146 for first reading. Ordinance amending and adopting section 33.04 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio relative to pay scales for seasonal employees. Ordinance number 9147 for first reading. Ordinance amending and adopting sections of Chapter 30 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green regarding members' compensation terms. Ordinance number 9148 for first reading. Ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to enter into contracts for the Carter Park Baseball Field Lighting Project and declaring an emergency.
I make a motion to suspend the rules and give ordinance 9148 its second and third readings.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Jody, could you call the roll?
Rabando,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odericio,
Yes.
Robinette.
Yes.
Okay, the rules are suspended for ordinance 9148.
Ordinance number 9148 for second and third readings. Ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to enter into contracts for the Carter Park Baseball Field Lighting Project and declaring an emergency.
All right, I would like to make a motion to adopt the emergency clause for ordinance 9148.
Second.
Okay, properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I will just say with regard to this, the reason for the hasty movement on this is that we received very favorable bids, and we want to move forward with this before people change their minds. So. Jody?
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odericio,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Rabando.
Yes.
Okay, so the emergency clause is adopted for ordinance 9148. I now would like to move to adopt ordinance 9148.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, Jody?
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odericio,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Rabando,
Yes.
Dennis.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 9148 is adopted.
Ordinance number 9149 for first reading. Ordinance authorizing an easement for a First Energy transmission line. Ordinance number 9150 for first reading. Ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to enter into contracts for services associated with a Geographic Information System utility pole audit. Ordinance number 9151 for first reading. Ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to execute a conduit lease agreement with Amplex Electric, Inc. Legislation for second reading. Ordinance number 9136 for second reading. Ordinance declaring the improvement of certain parcels of real property to be a public purpose, declaring such property to be exempt from real property taxation, designating specific public infrastructure improvements that, once made, will directly benefit the parcels for which improvement is declared to be a public purpose, requiring annual service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund, and providing related authorizations pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Sections 5709.40B, 57.09.42, 57.09.43, 5709.82, 5709.83, and 5709.85.
Ordinance 9136 is exactly why I'm glad I'm not you during these meetings.
Thanks.
Yep.
Ordinance number 9137 for second reading. Ordinance amending the zoning district map of the city of Bowling Green for approximately 1.57 acres on South Dunbridge Road, parcel number B07511 28000000 2002 from A1 agricultural to IE innovation and employment zoning. Ordinance number 9138 for second reading. Ordinance amending and adopting sections of Chapter 50 of the codified ordinances of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio concerning zoning code. Ordinance number 9139 for second reading. Ordinance amending and adopting section 70.40 C1G, C2, and C4 of the codified ordinances of the city of Bowling Green regarding inoperable vehicles. Ordinance number 9140 for second reading. Ordinance amending and adopting Section 99.20A of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green concerning noxious weeds, duty to cut. Ordinance number 9141 for second reading. Ordinance creating and adopting Section 99.21 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green concerning managed natural landscape. Ordinance number 9142 for second reading. Ordinance creating and adopting Section 159 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green concerning exterior property maintenance. Legislation for third reading. Resolution number 3857 for third reading. Resolution authorizing the sale of obsolete or unfit municipally owned personal property which is not needed for public use by internet auction and authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a contract with GovDeals, Inc. for ongoing internet auctions for calendar year 2024.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to adopt Resolution 3857.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Jody?
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odericio,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Rabando,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold.
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 3857 is adopted.
Resolution number 3858 for third reading. Resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a renewal of the agreement with the Wood County Public Defender.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette?
I move to adopt Resolution 3858.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Jody?
Odericio,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Rabando,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh.
Yes, Resolution 3858 is adopted.
Ordinance number 9131 for third reading. Ordinance amending Chapter 35 Finances of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio to enact and adopt a new section refining the process for determination of the lowest and best bid on public improvement projects subject to Ohio Revised Code or ORC Section 4115.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette?
I move to table ordinance 9131 until December 4th, which will be after the conclusion of the previously set committee meeting, which is at 6 PM that evening.
Sorry. Second.
It's properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that? Jody?
Robinette,
Yes.
Rabando,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odericio.
Yes.
Okay, so ordinance 9131 is tabled until December 4th, 2023.
Ordinance number 9132 for third reading. Ordinance amending and adopting section 121.04A1 and 121.04A2 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio regarding interior and exterior inspections required.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette?
I move to adopt ordinance 9132.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Jody?
Mr. President?
Yep.
Sorry. I just wanted to point out that we had our briefing on this issue on October 2nd. I think that we learned a lot of things, and one of the things that we learned is that once this inspection went live, we were able to actually improve our system because we got a lot of great feedback. And I think that it would actually help us if we kept this system in place and continued to receive that feedback. We learned that, letters, notifications, numerous mailings, phone calls, starting alerting property owners as early as August of 2021. So people have had a lot of time to, figure out these inspections. In fact, over 6,000 properties have figured out these inspections and have complied with this registration form. And I understand that, the city hasn't always had information readily available at all times. But I think that propping it up, getting it on its feet, and we continue to learn from this process is better than actually delaying it. So wanted to point that out.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I'd just like to say that I think there are really two overriding issues here. One, we all recognize that the rollout of the initial checklist was not as smooth as it could have been. And we've heard tonight from the city attorney that the project to improve those is underway and should be wrapped up by the end of the month, which means a new set of inspection checklists will be published. And I think delaying this just a few more months will help all parties involved adapt to the revised checklists and make our system work even more efficiently.
Well, and also, people continue to do the inspections, so it's not like extending this deadline would lead to people stopping that process. The process would continue to be ongoing. Any other discussion?
Mr. President?
Yep.
We've also heard in previous meetings that the deadline has already been extended without any legislation by City Council. So I guess I am not understanding why legislation is now necessary to move the deadline again. I'm not sure that it will. We've also heard that everything that is on the current inspection checklist, or I guess the original inspection checklist, is already codified elsewhere. So we are not asking anybody to do anything that is not already the law. So I also am not going to be in favor of delaying this a year. I would entertain an amendment to extend the deadline to allow for the full 6-month period that was in the original legislation, which I believe ran from June. I don't have the dates, but if we want to extend it to maybe the end of January, I would entertain that if somebody wanted to make that motion. Otherwise, I plan to vote no on this ordinance.
Well, I think part of the problem isn't simply the amount of days that are in between. It's what is happening with regard to the properties during those days. And the reason it was originally set up the way it was is because it's during the summer months when property owners have the greatest accessibility to their properties. And that is not something that would occur between now and the end of January.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I don't have the dates before me, but when is the holiday break for BGSU students? I mean, it doesn't seem like they might be a good time for them not to be in their apartments at that point in time.
No, but people are occupying the units. And, I don't know if I would feel comfortable going into someone's unit while they were away on holiday without them being there, so. Any other discussion on ordinance 9132? Okay, Jody?
Rabando,
No.
Dennis,
No.
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odericio,
Yes.
Robinette.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 9132 is adopted.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move to adopt, we got to read it first. 9135. I jumped the gun.
Ordinance number 9135 for third reading. Ordinance amending and adopting section 39.01 and 39.02 of the codified ordinances of the city of Bowling Green concerning unlawful discrimination.
Mr. President,
Mr. Odericio.
I move to adopt ordinance 9135.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jody?
Dennis,
Yes.
Harold,
No.
Hollenbaugh,
No.
Odericio,
Yes.
Robinette,
No.
Rabando.
No.
Okay, so ordinance 9135 is not adopted.
Ordinance number 9128 comes off the table automatically.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette?
I move to adopt ordinance 9128.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jody, could you call the roll?
Harold,
Yes.
Hollenbaugh,
Yes.
Odericio,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Rabando,
Yes.
Dennis.
Yes.
Ordinance 9128 is adopted. Do I have a motion to excuse
moved.
Councilmember Phipps?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Is there any other business to come before council?
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette?
not council business, but I would like to make a public service announcement that there is a Veterans Day ceremony on Saturday, November 11th at 11 a.m. at the Veterans Memorial Plaza at the Wood County Courthouse.
Okay. And I would like to do my government teacher public service announcement that tomorrow is Election Day, and we, the people, are the demo in democracy. So everyone should go participate and then celebrate. So celebrate that our experiment has lasted for well over 200 years.
Amen.
Okay. Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. We are adjourned.